Hello everyone, Chào Kanya. Your beloved MC is back. And today, let me tell you a story from deep within the jungle. A story so funny, you might just fall off your chair. So, picture this. A big, slightly chubby orangutan named Yu. Yu is famous in the forest not for his strength but for his incredible talent for doing absolutely nothing. One bright morning, he hangs a sign on his favorite banyan tree, Yu's ultimate yoga, find your inner sloth. Lop yoga. Toi thung kwa u, team con lui ben trung ban. The whole jungle was buzzing with excitement. A yoga class? How sophisticated, how trendy. Everyone wanted in on this new health craze. From all corners of the forest, the animals gathered. There was Chi Voi, graceful and enormous, hoping to improve her flexibility. Un Hu Kauko was there, hoping the poses might help with his perpetually stiff neck from reaching for the highest leaves. Even Sok No, who never sits still for more than a second, scurried down a tree, intrigued by the promise of inner peace. They all arrived with their little leaf mats, full of energy and ready to stretch, bend, and find their zen. They looked at U, their new guru, who was already settled in his teaching spot, looking incredibly serene and wise. Wu welcomed his students with a slow, majestic wave of his hand. "Welcome, welcome, my dear friends," he mumbled, his voice deep and sleepy. "Today, we begin a journey not of movement, but of stillness. Chào mừng các bạn thân yêu. Hôm nay chúng ta bắt đầu một hành trình không phải của sự chuyển động, mà là của sự tĩnh lặng." The animals nodded eagerly, not quite understanding but completely captivated by his profound-sounding words. They spread out their mats, their eyes fixed on their teacher, anticipating the first challenging pose that would transform their bodies and minds. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of fresh leaves, and a faint, mysterious smell of something salty. The orangutan guru, however, seemed to be in no rush to start. He just sat there, propped up against the tree trunk, with a peaceful, slightly vacant smile on his face. He adjusted his position, not to demonstrate a pose, but to get more comfortable. He let out a long, contented sigh that echoed through the quiet clearing, a sound of pure, unadulterated laziness. The students watched, confused, but patient. Perhaps this was part of the process, a meditative moment before the real work began. Little did they know, this was the real work according to Guru U's unique philosophy. The first lesson was already underway, the art of doing nothing. "Okay class, our first pose is very important," Yu announced, finally stirring from his meditative state. "It is called downward-facing snack. Duk roi ka lup, tu te do tien rit quan chung, na duk gai la, up mat vow do un vat." He then produced a large, crinkly bag of banana chips from behind his back. The animals exchanged bewildered glances. Was this a metaphor? A spiritual symbol? Wu tore the bag open with his teeth, crinkle, and the delicious, sweet smell of fried banana filled the air, completely overpowering the scent of the forest. He took a chip, examined it closely like a precious gem, and then popped it into his mouth with a loud, satisfying crunch. "Now, watch my form closely," he instructed, his mouth full. "You must reach down, very slowly, into the bag, secure the snack, then bring it up to your mouth, and relax. Bezo, hay quan sat ki tuat kutoi, ban fai kui suong, tut chump, vào trong tui, lado an vat, sau đó, đưa nó lên miệng, và..." "Tu Zan?" Chi Voi blinked her large eyes. "But, Master U," she asked gently, "where are our bags of snacks? Nhưng thưa thầy U, tui do an vat của chúng em ở đâu ạ?" And Hu Cao Ko craned his long neck, peering at the single bag U was guarding possessively. "Yes, and is this good for our posture? Dung ve, va tu tene ko tot chakot songkoma." U paused mid-chew, looking offended. "Nonsense. The goal of yoga is happiness, right? And what brings more happiness than a good snack? Vô vân. Mục tiêu của yoga là hạnh phúc phải không? Và có gì mang lại nhiều hạnh phúc hơn một món ăn vặt ngon chứ?" He demonstrated again, this time with dramatic flair, reaching into the bag as if he were lifting a great weight, his face a mask of intense concentration. Crunch, crunch. Sok No, ever impulsive, tried to mimic the pose, diving headfirst into a pile of leaves, searching for a forgotten nut. The other animals just sat there, their stomachs beginning to rumble in protest. "Focus on your breathing," U commanded, though his own breathing was interrupted by loud crunching noises. "Breathe in the delicious aroma. Breathe out the desire to share. Hay tap trung va hoi to kwa ban. Hit bao hung tum ngon lang. To ra ham mun chia sa." He patted his round belly contentedly. This pose strengthens the arm muscles and, more importantly, the spirit of self-care. Tu te ne jup tung kung kote va quan chung hun la ting tun tu chum suk ban tun. The yoga class was not going as planned. Instead of stretching their limbs, the animals were only stretching their patience as they watched their teacher happily devour his entire lesson plan. After finishing his snack, Guru U announced the next phase of the class. "Now we will practice a powerful breathing technique known as the Great Sigh of Relief," he declared. "Bei, Jo. Chungta sa takai mokito to my med gala ting to jai vidai." He inhaled deeply, his chest puffing out, and then let out an enormous jaw-stretching yawn that seemed to last for a full minute. Yawn. Ah. His eyes watered with satisfaction. Feel the tension leave your body, feel the energy for doing things just float away. The sheer force and sound of the yawn were surprisingly hypnotic. An Huo Chao-ko, who had been trying to stretch his neck by himself, suddenly felt an unstoppable urge. He opened his long mouth and let out a surprisingly loud echoing yawn of his own. It traveled up his neck like a wave. The sound startled Sok-no, who was still digging in the leaves. The squirrel stopped, looked up, and then let out a tiny squeaky yawn. It was happening. Like a spark in dry grass, the yawn began to spread through the class. Chivoy tried to stifle hers behind her trunk, but it escaped, as a deep, rumbling sound that shook the ground slightly. The lazy energy was contagious. "Excellent. You are all naturals." U praised them, looking genuinely proud for the first time. "You are connecting with your inner laziness. Tuyet voy. Kak ban deo la nying tien tai bum sing. Kak ban dang ket noi visu Lười Biếng ben trong ming." He then introduced the next pose, the horizontal contemplation, which involved lying flat on your back and staring at the clouds. "To the teep theo. Nam ngang suingum." The key, he explained, closing his eyes, is to think about as little as possible. In fact, don't think at all. Just be. One by one, the animals abandoned their yoga mats and flopped onto the soft grass. The once energetic clearing was now a scene of profound lethargy. Chivoy lay on her side, her trunk resting limply on the ground. Anhu Kauko had found a comfortable patch of moss to use as a pillow for his head. Even the hyperactive Sok-no was now spread-eagled on a low-hanging branch, his tail twitching occasionally in his sleep. The ambition to get fit, the desire for flexibility, the quest for inner peace, it had all been replaced by a much simpler, more powerful urge, the desire for a good nap. Guru U's teachings were proving to be incredibly effective, just not in the way anyone had expected. The final and most advanced pose of the day, as announced by a half-asleep U, was total surrender to sleep. Tu the kui kung va kau kup nyut chung ngay, do hang juk ngu huan tuan. "Do not fight it," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Let the warm sun be your blanket. Let the gentle breeze be your lullaby. This is the ultimate state of Zen. Dung chongku. Haide ein nang ap lam chun. Haide kun zornye lam loi ru. De la trang tai tien ding kui kung." With that final pearl of wisdom, U began to snore softly, a rhythmic, peaceful sound that became the official soundtrack of the yoga class. The jungle floor now looked like a giant, furry slumber party. A gentle harmony of snores filled the air. U's soft rumbles, Chivoy's deep and steady breathing, Anhu Kauko's occasional sleepy snort, and Sok-no's tiny whistling breaths. No one was stretching. No one was meditating. They were all participating in a collective nap, a nap-in of epic proportions. The quest for wellness had ended in a shared state of blissful laziness. In a way, they had found a kind of peace, the peace of a full belly and an impending nap, which, let's be honest, is a pretty great kind of peace. Hours later, the animals began to stir one by one as the sun started to set. They stretched, not in a yoga-like way, but in the lazy, satisfying way one does after a long, unplanned sleep. Wow, said Chivoy, feeling strangely refreshed. I've never felt so relaxed. Wow, tôi chưa bao giờ cảm thấy thư giãn như vậy. Anh Hước nodded in agreement. My neck doesn't even hurt. I think because I didn't move it for 3 hours. Cổ của tôi cũng không đau nữa. Chắc là vì tôi đã không cử động nó trong 3 tiếng đồng hồ. They all looked at Guru U, who was still snoring, a contented smile on his face. Maybe, just maybe, the lazy orangutan was onto something. His yoga class didn't build muscles, but it did build community. It didn't teach discipline, but it did teach the importance of rest. It was a complete failure as a fitness class, but a massive success as an excuse to do nothing together. As they quietly packed up their leaf mats, trying not to wake their teacher, they all agreed they would be back next week. Oo's lazy yoga was the best new thing in the jungle. And that's the story, everyone. So funny, right? Và đó là câu chuyện mọi người. That là hài hước, phải không?